It's gonna be Justin Gaethje, isn't it? Islam Makhachev has turned down Ilia Topuria according to Islam's team. Okay, that was the fight to make, but to be fair, I do understand why they're not giving it to Ilia, right? He has one title defense. He's coming up to lightweight. He didn't beat everybody in his weight class like a champion should before moving up, but he did vacate his belt. On the other hand, who else is there to fight him right now if Arman isn't going to get the title shot? And Charles most likely isn't getting the title shot. Bro, do not tell me Justin Gaethje is fighting Islam. If that is what it is, there'll be another undeserved title shot. That's almost the exact same as when Dustin fought Islam. Both are coming off one win against someone like number 11, right? Not even a top-ranked guy. Dustin beat Benoit Saint Denis. Justin beat Rafael Fiziev. And that's what gets him a title shot? Like, what? And before that, they both got knocked out. Dustin got knocked out by Justin 2 fights before his title shot. Justin got knocked out by Max in like that same time. So that's number 1. Number 2, do you know how easy Islam beats Justin Gaethje? As soon as Justin's back hits the ground, the fight is over, man. If Arman's fighting Islam, that makes sense. If Charles fighting Islam, I could kind of see it. The fans want Ilia Topuria if it's not going to be Arman. Certainly not Justin the Highlight Gaethje, coming off 1 win, who has absolutely no ground game whatsoever. Now, also to be fair, this isn't Islam saying that, right? This is his corner, his camp. It could be very possible that he told them, I'll fight anybody. But then maybe his manager and his coaches told him, no, you shouldn't be fighting Ilia because this, that, this, and that. And it's like, okay, that could happen, but it also could be that Islam just doesn't want to fight Ilia. I mean, he's never turned him down publicly. Like, every time he's talked about Ilia, he's never said, I won't fight him. He said that Ilia doesn't deserve it, but if that's what the UFC wants, he'll fight anybody. And that's kind of been Islam's motto, right? What's Islam's quote? What does a title represent? It means you're the best in the world. And if you're the best in the world, it doesn't matter who is standing across from you. What do I say? No, never. Let's do this. That quote from Islam is plastered on the walls of the UFC, literally. So even if he himself did not turn down Ilia, if it was his camp that convinced him to do it, it still doesn't look good, you know? So on one hand, I understand why Ilia is not getting a title shot. On the other hand, I understand why people might think that Islam is not living up to his word, that he would never turn down any fighter, right? This is not the UFC turning down Ilia. This is Islam's camp turning down Ilia. And what does that mean for Ilia Topuria now? So with Islam, it looks like he might be fighting Justin Gaethje, most likely, right? I think even Dana said that Justin could fight for a title.
So he's like, I do want to fight for the title again at some point, you know, before he's done. Do you feel like at this point in his career, he's still on a potential championship trajectory?
I mean, what's he ranked right now? 4th or something, right?
3rd.
Yeah, 3rd. There you go. He's still the number 3 ranked guy in the world. So the odds of him getting a title shot are pretty good.
What does this mean for Ilia Topuria, who just vacated his belt? That was a big gamble, man. That was a very big gamble, because now he's going to have to fight maybe Charles, or he might have to turn around and fight Arman, because he did say he will not fight Arman. He'll only fight for the belt. Now that the belt is not on the table, maybe he fights Arman. That is the kind of fight, that or Charles. Those are the fights that Ilia should be taking. Don't fight Dustin. As much as I love the Dustin fight, and I think it's the best fight at lightweight, Dustin Poirier versus Ilia Topuria is a fight for all the fans, man. The best boxers in the UFC throwing down for 5 rounds would be insane. The exchanges between them two would be otherworldly, but Dustin's on his retirement fight, and it seems like he might be fighting somebody already. Charles, I would say, is more beatable than Arman, just because of his striking defense. He's there to be hit. And if 187-pound Ilia Topuria lands a clean shot on Charles, that fight's probably over. He might be the biggest puncher, even at lightweight. But at the same time, Charles is the most dangerous fighter for Ilia, because he is the guy that can knock Ilia out or submit him. His wrestling's got a lot better. His striking is very lethal offensively. Whereas for Arman, it's hard to beat Arman, but it's not as dangerous of a fight, you know? He just has to stop the wrestling, and if he could do that, I think he knocks Arman out. So those are the fights for Ilia Topuria next. Should be. Right? If it turns out he's fighting like Max Holloway again, or he fights Maximus Holloway, that would be so ridiculous. Or if he fights like Mateusz Gamrot or something, Dan Hooker. No, he should be fighting either the number 1 or number 2 contenders. If a champion comes up with like 1 or 2 title defenses, we get it that he doesn't deserve a title shot right off of that, but he at least deserves the number 1 or number 2 contenders, you know? And if he beats one of them, then they have to do the Islam fight. And Ilia was supposed to be potentially the next big superstar for the UFC, especially in Spain. All the big arenas over there. He's friends with the celebrities. These are global superstars in football especially. And with him vacating his belt, he now must beat Islam. He put himself in a position where he cannot reach superstardom if he doesn't beat Islam Makhachev. And it's not even his next fight. He needs to get through one big win, one of the placeholders, and then fight the king after. And honestly, if he does both of those things, even though it's a lot harder to do than just fighting Islam and that's it, if he could get through Arman and and then beat Islam after, it would prove that Ilia is just something else. Like he was destined to be the greatest or something. Like he was the chosen one or something. Like if he goes from beating Volkanovski to Max to Armin to Islam all in a row. Dude, if he wants to fight Brock Lesnar after, let him do it, you know? Who cares? Bro could beat anybody at that point. I'd be convinced he could beat anybody. So very interesting. I do think if Islam fights Justin, he easily beats him. I think the Armin fight would be close. So would the Charles fight. But I think he beats both of them as well. If Ilia fights Charles, I think Ilia wins. Although it's a very dangerous fight. I can see Charles finishing him too. And then against Armin, if Ilia fills up to lightweight, that's his only way of beating Armin. If he's still too small, Armin might just out-wrestle him. Armin might just overpower him and out-wrestle him. But I just don't think, even if he gets past one of them two, I don't think he beats Islam. So very interesting news. I did not expect Islam's corner to come out and say that they will not be fighting Ilia Topuria. I thought if anything it would be the UFC that would say that. And the other thing too is, with a lot of these fighters at lightweight about to retire, Dustin, Justin probably has a few fights. Chandler maybe has a few fights. Same with Charles. They need that next big star to fight Islam, and it could be Ilia, right? It should be Ilia. But I also think they're waiting for Paddy Pimblett. Paddy Pimblett finishes Michael Chandler. They're going to want him to fight for the belt. He'll bring an audience. He'll be a bigger name by then. He'll get absolutely dragged across that octagon by both Islam and Ilia. But they do need some more competition at the top of the weight class. It can't just all be the same guys, right? And with all those same guys, Dustin, Justin, Chandler, Charles, all those guys are going to retire soon. Who's going to be left after that? Like, look at the lightweight division. Look at the rankings, right? We've seen this in other weight classes before, where the bunch of the top guys retired and the weight class wasn't as strong with the new elite. So you'll have Islam, Armin, Ilia. For sure, those are the top three guys. Then Max, that's the top group. And after that, it falls off. Who's the next best? Dan Hooker? Paddy Pimblett if he beats Chandler? Mateusz Gamrot? I think we're going to see Ignacio Bahamondes, Yoel Alvarez, and Mauricio Hufi as the future elite of the lightweight division. I don't think Max will retire, but to be honest, I think Max will be out of his prime and some of the other fighters coming up will beat him. Guys like Bahamondes and Hufi and maybe Yoel Alvarez could beat someone like Max Holloway. Not now, but maybe in the future. I think Islam, Armin, and Ilia are the true top tier lightweights in the next few years, which is very different because lightweight used to have a lot more talent at the top. And until Bahamondes and the other guys come up, the lightweight division might not be too strong before that. So here's how you matchmake the lightweight division now that Ilia is not going to be fighting Islam. They should just bring back Armin. Islam Makhachev versus Armin Tsarukyan 2 is the fight to make. Then do Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira for the #1 contender. Justin Gaethje versus Dan Hooker, as Justin did say he will not be fighting Dustin. There's a lot of these guys saying they're not going to fight each other, right? Islam's not fighting Ilia. Ilia doesn't want to fight Armin. Justin doesn't want to fight Dustin. It all kind of makes sense, but there's a lot of that right now in lightweight. I would say Dustin versus Max. It's the most logical fight when you think of the other contenders. Dan Hooker versus Justin Gaethje. Michael Chandler's fighting Paddy Pimblett. They could do Mateusz Gamrot versus Renato Moicano. Beneil Dariush versus Ignacio Bahamondes. Rafael Fiziev is going down to featherweight, and I think he should fight Kelvin Kattar. Paddy Pimblett's fighting Michael Chandler. Benoit Saint-Denis is fighting Yoel Alvarez, who I think will be ranked after that fight. Right? I do think Yoel Alvarez is going to beat Benoit Saint-Denis, which is crazy because Benoit Saint-Denis went from the favorite against Dustin to he might even be unranked if he loses to Alvarez. And then Grant Dawson versus maybe Mauricio Hufi would be pretty cool. And then Ignacio Bahamondes should fight Beneil Dariush. So those are the fights at lightweight, or lack of fights, should I say. I understand from both sides. I can understand why Islam doesn't want to fight him. And if Armin's not going to get a title shot, then it should be Ilia, right? It's the fight all the fans want to see. It's one of the biggest fights they could put on. But what do you think about Islam not fighting Ilia? And how would you matchmake the lightweight division now? Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did, make sure to give it a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.